إنما الخلف الطيب منهم من اقتفى أثر السلف، هذا هو الطيب منهم.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا، من يهديه الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. So today then, insha'Allah ta'ala, we're starting the new class, and this new class, it is going to be regarding the Seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And it is important to learn the Seerah, just as it is important to learn all aspects of our religion, because we know that after we die, there is going to be something known as fitnatul qabr, the trial of the grave, when the two angels, they will come to you after you die. The two angels, al-munkar wal-nakir, aswadani azraqani, as it says in the hadith, black and blue in appearance. They will come to every person, they will come to us to ask us, Man Rabbuka, wa ma dinuka, wa man nabiyyuka. Who is your Lord? What is your religion? And who is your prophet? That is one of the questions that will be asked in the trial of the grave. After you die and we go to Barzakh, that trial occurs and the angels, they come and they sit you up in your grave and they ask you, who is your Lord? What is your religion? And who is your prophet? So knowing about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is important, and knowing the Seerah is important. Many people these days, if you ask them about famous personalities, they will tell you all types of details about them. These celebrities or sports people, they will tell you so many details about them, they know everything about them. But if you ask them, tell us about your Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and they are incapable of telling you anything. So it is important to learn this knowledge, to learn the knowledge of what your religion is, who your Lord is, and who your Prophet is. It is important for us to focus as Muslims, to gain knowledge, to strive and put effort into that, because we know of the encouragement in the Quran and the Sunnah to seek knowledge. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Man yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqqihhu fid din. Whomsoever Allah wants goodness for, Allah gives them knowledge in the religion. And Allah said in the Quran, هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون? Are they the same? The ones who know, have knowledge, and the ones who do not? Clearly they are not the same. Rather, the ones with knowledge are superior, and the ones without are inferior. And that's why we see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in another hadith, Man salaka tariqan yaltamisu fihi ilma سهل الله له به طريقا إلى الجنة. That whomsoever treads upon a pathway seeking by it knowledge, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make your pathway to paradise easy because of that. So it's important that we encourage ourselves and each other to seek knowledge of our religion. How much of our time gets wasted here and there on the streets with your friends and eating and all types of things. But how much time do we put into seeking knowledge on a weekly basis? So you should all strive. Make this a fixture in your schedule that you are going to learn the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You're going to learn who Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was. You're going to learn about his life. You're going to learn about the things that happened, the battles that happened, the da'wah that he gave to the mushrikun and how they reacted, all types of details. And the more you learn about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then the more your love for him increases and your love of the religion increases. And so you become more focused on learning and more focused on worship. And so it's important everybody focuses on knowledge, focuses on your religion. It's an hour a week to put aside to learn your religion from all of the week and the times and the days that you have. An hour a week. So a person should not neglect seeking knowledge and should not forfeit and lose out on studying, and do not allow the whispers of the shaitan to drag you away into worldly affairs and other issues of no benefit. Whispers that drag you away into matters that will not benefit you in this world nor in the afterlife, but rather cling on to the methodology of the Salaf in studying and learning and practicing and implementing. Cling on to the way of the scholars and follow with them, and stick to this learning of the religion and studying and applying it. So, as we said, Seerah is the topic of these lessons that we're going to be doing. The first thing we're going to mention today is some statements of Shaykh al-Fawzan, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, where he talks about the importance of Seerah and why in particular we need to learn Seerah. So he says, سيرة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نعم فكل أفعاله وأقواله وتصرفاته يعني النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فهي سيرته. All of the actions and the statements and the behaviors and interactions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of that is the seerah of the messenger. Because the word seerah, it means like a pathway that you tread upon. A pathway that you tread upon, a methodology that you tread upon. فهي الطريقة التي كان يسير عليها الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. It is the way that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم used to tread upon منذ بعثته إلى أن توفاه الله, from the moment he became a prophet up until death came to him. وهذا أمر مهم, and it is something very important. تعلم السيرة, learning the seerah. It's very important أن المسلم يدرس سيرة الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم من أجل أن يقتدي به. It is very important for every Muslim to learn the seerah so that he can then follow in the footsteps of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. لأن الله جل وعلا قد جعله قدوة لنا. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the messenger a role model for us to follow. That's in the Quran. Allah said in Al-Ahzab, ayah 21, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That indeed you have a good role model in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if Allah is telling us that the messenger is our role model to follow, then the only way you can do that is by learning about his life and learning what he did and what his da'wah was, so that you can then follow the messenger. How can you follow in his footsteps if you know nothing about him and you know nothing about his life, know nothing about his da'wah? You need to know those things to be able to then follow in the footsteps of the messenger. So the Shaykh says, the Shaykh al-Fawzan in this part, فَهُوَ قُدْوَتُنَا عليه الصلاة والسلام فلندرس سيرته من أجل أن نقتدي به في ذلك. So he is our role model, and so we learn the seerah so that we can follow in his footsteps. وهذا هو المطلوب من دراسة السيرة والتفقه فيها. And this is the point of learning seerah and gaining knowledge of it. ليس المقصود أن السيرة تقرأ في مناسبة مبتدعة مثل مناسبة المولد، فإن هذه القراءة لا تسمن ولا تغني من جوع. The point of seerah is not what some people have made out of it, which is that on certain occasions they will take out the books of seerah and read some of the stories that happened to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just read the stories generally in some of these events that they have on innovated dates, like the birthday of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They will have their event on that day and they'll read some of the books of seerah on that day. These books of seerah and learning the seerah, it is not just so that you can read stories on a one-off event when you're celebrating something innovative to begin with. The seerah is not just to fill the time in an innovated event and just make nice stories for people. The purpose of seerah is greater than that. That does not benefit in that way. Innama, those individuals, what they are doing, laysat littafaqquh fiha. They are not doing it to actually learn it. وإنما هي عندهم للتبرك جريا على العادة فقط. They do it for barakah, as they believe, barakah, let's read the stories of the messenger and do this event and celebrate and have food. That is not the purpose of seerah. Rather, the purpose is so that you can think about what happened during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Think about how things used to be, how the messenger used to live, how the companions used to live in those days. Think about the events that they went through. Think about the da'wah of the messenger, in order that we can then apply that and take lessons from it. وقد كتب الإمام ابن القيم رحمه الله كتابا عظيما في فقه السيرة وهو زاد المعاد في هدي خير العباد. There is a tremendous book that Al-Imam Ibn Al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala wrote, and that famous book is Zad al-Ma'ad, the provisions for the hereafter. Zad al-Ma'ad, provisions for the hereafter. That's what he titled the book. So that is the purpose of learning the seerah. The purpose is to understand the methodology of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فهذا هو المقصود من دراسة السيرة أنك تفهم دين الأنبياء, so that you can understand the religion of the prophets عليهم الصلاة والسلام. تفهم التوحيد لتتبعه, so that you can understand the reality of Tawheed by looking into what the da'wah of the messenger was, so that you can then apply that Tawheed in your lives. وتفهم الشرك من أجل أن تجتنبه, and so that you can understand what shirk is in order to avoid that. فلا يكفي أن الإنسان يعرف الحق فقط, بل لابد أن يعرف الحق ويعرف الباطل. يعرف الحق من أجل أن يعمل به, ويعرف الباطل من أجل أن يتجنبه. So a person needs to know both sides. You need to know the truth and you need to know the falsehood. The truth so that you follow that truth, and the falsehood so that you can make sure you stay away from the falsehood. So that is the first important point to take note of. When we're learning this seerah, and we're going to be going through so many stories of the messenger, it's not just about hearing nice stories and going away and then forgetting them. When you're hearing these stories, you need to be thinking about them carefully. You need to be focused on what's going on and what was happening at the time of the messenger carefully. And you need to be thinking about the lessons to be drawn from that. And we will be doing that as we go along, so that you are then benefiting and understanding the point of all of it. That when we talk about this battle happened and this issue happened and that happened, and then you think about those situations and the lessons to be taken from them, so then you apply those lessons practically in your lives. Not that you just hear the stories and go away and then forget them. So it's important to focus on the events and think about them carefully. The actual book, as you know, there is no one specific book that we're going to be working through cover to cover, but the closest thing is Al-Urjuza Al-Mi'iyya. That is the poem. The order is going to be the order of the poem. The order that we go through the events is going to be the same order that is in that book, Al-Urjuza Al-Mi'iyya of Ibn Abil Izz Al-Hanafi. And that particular book is a poem. It's a poem of 100 lines going through the seerah of the messenger. So the order of events that are in that poem, that's the same order we're going to go through. But as for the actual details, it will be from the seerah of Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, the seerah of Ibn Kathir, checked by Shaykh Al-Albani. So there'll be a couple of different resources, maybe even some of the other famous books, to explain and go through those events one by one. The first thing we're going to discuss then is from the very beginning of when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. About the birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the poem, after the introductions, there are some introductions that he mentions. Alhamdulillahi al-Qadim al-Bari, thumma salatuhu ala al-Mukhtari, وبعدها كسيرة الرسول منظومة موجزة الفصول. After those two lines of introduction where he praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then he says here, this is going to be the seerah of the messenger as a poem in the various chapters, in the various sections. So then the first chapter he goes into, مولده في عاشر الفضيل ربيع الأول عام الفيل لكنما المشهور ثاني عشره في يوم الاثنين طلوع فجره ووافق 20 من نيسانا وقبله حين أبيه حانا. In this opening section, then he talks about the birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says that one of the opinions about that is that the messenger was born في عاشر الفضيل ربيع الأول، أي في اليوم العاشر من شهر ربيع الأول. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born on the 10th of Rabi' al-Awwal, the 10th of the Islamic month Rabi' al-Awwal, in the year of the elephant. Now there are differences of opinion on the exact date that the messenger was born on. There is no one definite date that is the date he was born on. It isn't like that. There isn't a hadith saying he was born on the something of this month. There is no date like that. So there are differences of opinion on the exact date that he was born on. This is one opinion, the 10th of Rabi' al-Awwal, in the year of the elephant. The fact that it was in the year of the elephant, that is generally accepted. There isn't really much difference about that as such, or significant or considerable. It was the year of the elephant, or thereabouts at least. So then the question is, if he was born in the year of the elephant, the question is obviously, what is the year of the elephant? What does it mean that he was born in the year of the elephant? What was the year of the elephant? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about the year of the elephant. That is mentioned in the Quran. Where is it mentioned in the Quran? Surah Al-Fil. One of the kids tell us, what is Surah Al-Fil? Anybody know Surah Al-Fil? What is it? You don't know it? Who knows the beginning of Surah Al-Fil? ألم ترى كيف؟
ألم ترى كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب ألم ترى كيف فعل بأصحاب الفيل
ربك بأصحاب الفيل. That one. ألم ترى كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل. Do you not see how your Lord dealt with the companions of the elephant, the army of the elephant? That chapter talks about what happened in the year of the elephant. There was an incident, something happened that year. This was before the Prophet ﷺ was born. Most of the books, they say the messenger was born just after this event happened about the elephant. But what was this event of the elephant? And just as a side point, in the books of history, in these books of Seerah or history generally, they often remember years by events that happened. So they'll say, in the year of the elephant, XYZ happened. In the year of that big fire, so and so happened. They remember or mention years by big events that took place in those years. So they call this the year of the elephant, the year the messenger was born. But why do they call it the year of the elephant? Before the Prophet ﷺ became a prophet, was the Kaaba already there? It was already there, because the Kaaba was built by Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son Ismail alayhi salam. They built the Kaaba, and the Kaaba is, you've seen it now, it's quite high. And that's why Maqami Ibrahim, that what you see there, that golden thing, in there's a rock. And it is mentioned that Ibrahim alayhi salam used to stand on that rock to be able to put the bricks at the top of the wall. You can't reach it from the ground. He built the ground part, and then used to get up onto that rock and then put the bricks into the top part of the Kaaba to finish it. He used to stand on that rock doing it, and he was standing on it so much, going around building the Kaaba, that his feet prints went into the that stone, that rock. His feet print went into that rock, that stone. Now Maqami Ibrahim, that is the rock or the stone. And there are some feet prints in it. The scholars say though, they are not the original feet print of Ibrahim alayhi salam. The original footprints, hundreds and hundreds of years ago now, they wore out, of course. There was no glass over it or anything over it. That was just now recently they made that glass thing, that golden thing on top. Before that it would have just been there, rain, snow, sun, everything. And so it wore out. The original footprints wore out. Hundreds of years ago they wore out. Hundreds of years ago, not just now. And so now that rock is there, and there are two imprints to symbolize this is how Ibrahim alayhi salam used to stand and build the Kaaba. So the Kaaba was built then, long time ago. It was there before the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was made a prophet. And the Arabs, they used to respect the Kaaba. It was there, they used to respect it. And the Mushrikun, even before Islam, they used to do a type of Hajj, a type of Tawaf, and they used to do all types of shirk when they were doing it, but they used to do things there. They used to do a kind of Hajj, a kind of ritual that they used to do. So the Kaaba was there and it was respected by the Arabs, and they used to do some types of worship as they did with their shirk and everything in it. So the Kaaba was there and it was known and it was recognized. So much so that it's a bit like we say these days, the capital city. What is the capital city now here? London. All the big businesses, all the big companies, they're all based in London basically. The big businesses, the big companies, they go there. That is the capital of England, everything is there. In those days, Mecca was a bit like that. It was like how we think of a capital. They all used to gather there. They want to do trade. They want to come from Syria, from Palestine, from other places. They would all come to Mecca. That was like the big marketplace. So people from Yemen, people from Syria, they come and trade their goods and they go back. Other countries, Iraq and here and there, they would come. It was like Mecca was kind of a capital. All the business and trade ran through Mecca in those days. So, and one of the reasons was because of the Kaaba. The Kaaba was this well-known, recognized thing, and they all used to come, and the business and trade and everything ran through there. It was like we say these days, a kind of capital. But it was the capital of the Arabs, who were upon what they were upon. And at that time what occurred is that there was an element of, basically you could say, jealousy or envy from the Yemenis. There was some jealousy or envy at the time, because the Yemenis at that time, they were mostly Christians. There were Jews. There were plenty of Jews at that time as well in Yemen, but lots of Christians too. And it was the Christian authority at the time there. And so they basically wanted to pull the people away from Mecca and make Sana'a the big place. That the trade and everything and the people, they would all come through Sana'a, not Mecca. So they decided on a plan. And the leader at the time in Sana'a, in Yemen, in that area, was a man by the name of Abraha al-Ashram. He was the deputy in charge there. He was under the leadership of Najashi. Najashi was the overall ruler. Remember, there are many Najashis. We're going to talk about one of them later on, the one who became Muslim. But there are more than one Najashi. Najashi wasn't the name of a person. Najashi is the name of the ruler, like Pharaoh. Pharaoh isn't one person, there were many pharaohs. Pharaoh is just the name of the ruler of Egypt. Najashi was the name of the title that was given to the rulers of Abyssinia in that area. So the Najashi of that time was in authority, and Abraha al-Ashram was like his deputy in charge, the leader, the king of the Yemeni area. So they came up with a plan to build a huge church. This huge kind of church in Sana'a, so that they could maybe pull the people away from the Kaaba and everybody would come to this huge monument that they built in Sana'a. So that's what they did. As Sheikh bin Bazi mentions, خلاصته أن أبرهة الأشرم والي اليمن من قبل ملك الحبشة قد رأى أن يبني بيتا في صنعاء اليمن يدعو العرب إلى حجه بدل حجهم البيت الحرام. He decided to build this huge kind of church and get the Arabs and people to come and do some kind of Hajj there and do their rituals and worship there, and to pull them away from the Kaaba and downgrade the Kaaba. والقصد من ذلك تحويل التجارة والمكاسب من مكة إلى اليمن وعرض هذا على الملك الحبشي فوافق وصره ذلك. So Abraha al-Ashram, his real goal wasn't the religious side, his real goal was the business and the money. He wanted to bring all the trade into Sana'a rather than Mecca. Wanted to make Sana'a the capital of trade. So that was his plan. He'll do that via this huge kind of church, and everybody will start coming there and they'll forget about the Kaaba. So he built this church, and it is mentioned in the books of history that they built this huge building. The building was huge, and it was high up into the sky. They say in some of the books of history, if a man wearing a hat stood at the door of this building, at the front door outside at the front door, and looked up to the top of the building, he would have to bend his head so much that his hat would fall off. That's what they say in the books of history. Your hat would fall off, bending your head to look at the top of this building, how big it was. So it was a huge, magnificent building they built. Of course, the Arabs, the Quraysh in particular, Quraysh were in charge of Mecca and the Kaaba and that area. They realized what's going on, and they were not happy. They were not happy at what was happening here. And it's mentioned in the books of history, there was one of them especially, one individual, anger overcame him. He wasn't happy at what they were doing. And he went to this building that they had built, this kind of church. And he went inside and defecated around and put that on the walls. Basically went in there and used the toilet just in there. Just on the floor and everywhere. Didn't even go to the toilet, just went into the building, in their building, and just did it there. Made a mess. And then ran away. So obviously when they saw that, Abraha al-Ashram, when he saw that, فَلَمَّا رَآهَا أَبْرَهَ الْأَشْرَمْ بِتِلْكَ الْحَالِ اسْتَشَاطَ غَضَبًا وَجَهَّزَ جَيْشًا لِغَزْوِ مَكَّةَ وَهَدْمِ الْكَعْبَةِ. So Abraha, when he saw that, he was overwhelmed with anger, gathered his army together to go and destroy the Kaaba, just knock it down and finish it off. So he gathered his army. Abraha al-Ashram gathered his army, and they had elephants as part of their army. In the books of history and tafsir, some of them say there were 6 elephants, some of them say there were 7 elephants, some of them say there were 13. As Sheikh bin Baz here says, there were 13 differences about how many elephants they had. But they had these elephants with them. And the biggest elephant, the biggest one that they had was called Mahmud. The biggest elephant that was with them. And their plan was, they were going to go there with these elephants and chains or strong ropes. They were going to tie the ropes around the Kaaba, or these chains around the Kaaba, and the other ends of them, they were going to tie them around these 6 or 7 or 10 or 13 elephants, and then they were going to make the elephants run, and when the elephants run with all those chains, the Kaaba would come down. 13 elephants. 13 elephants that would bring down the brickwork of the Kaaba, the building of the Kaaba. That was their plan. So he gathered his army and he got his elephants and they began heading towards Mecca. وَسَارُوا مَا وَقَفَ فِي وَجْهِهِمْ حَيٍّ مِنْ أَحْيَاءِ الْعَرَبِ إِلَّا قَاتَلُوهُ وَهَزَمُوهُ. The Arabs obviously heard what was going on, that Abraha al-Ashram is coming with his army to come and destroy the Kaaba. So they tried to stop him. Every so often along the route, there would be a group or a tribe of the Arabs, they would try and stop him. He would crush them all. As he was going along, his army could not be stopped by them. He crushed them all as he went along. حَتَّى انْتَهَوْا إِلَى قُرْبِ مَكَّةِ, until they got to the borders of Mecca. They got to the edge of Mecca. وَجَرَتْ سِفَارَ بَيْنَهُمْ وَبَيْنَ شَيْخِ مَكَّةِ. So in those days, the way it used to be done as well is, when the army got to the edge of Mecca, they didn't just go in and attack. They got to the edge of Mecca, and Abraha went to have discussions with the leader of Mecca. Who was the leader of Mecca in those days? Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the leader of Mecca in those days. They never actually had a person in charge officially. They never used to have that kind of thing where you are officially the leader of Mecca. But he was the one recognized as the person of authority of Quraysh at the time and over Mecca generally. So he was the person they went to. So Abraha, they say, had a meeting with Abdul Muttalib. This is in some of the books of tafsir and history. That Abraha, his army stopped at the edge of Mecca. He then went, him and a couple of them or whatever, they went and they sat down with Abdul Muttalib. It is mentioned that Abdul Muttalib was sitting on the floor, and Abraha was this big leader coming from Yemen. He crushed all of the Arab attempts to stop him. He was there and he was in authority. They couldn't stop him. He was a man of authority who had come to conquer them. Abdul Muttalib was on the floor. It's mentioned in some of the books of tafsir and history that Abraha was impressed by Abdul Muttalib. He was impressed by his appearance and the way that he was and the way that he conducted himself. He was impressed by him. And Abraha came and sat on the floor with him. They say that was unusual for Abraha. He wouldn't sit on the floor. He was the big leader with the army. He's here to take over. But he sat on the floor with Abdul Muttalib and they had the discussion. Of course, Abraha said to him basically that I'm here to take over and destroy your Kaaba. Or not take over, but to destroy the Kaaba. I'm here to destroy the Kaaba. They say that Abdul Muttalib said what to him? Allah will protect the house, and there's another statement. That statement is half of it. What was the rest of the statement? Abdul Muttalib, when Abraha said to him, I'm here to destroy your Kaaba, Abdul Muttalib said, as for the Kaaba, that will be protected by the Lord of the Kaaba. Remember, they used to believe in Allah, the Quraysh, the Mushrikun. He said, the Kaaba will be protected by the Lord of the Kaaba. As for my camels that you took, I am in charge of those camels. And that's my responsibility. So give me my camels back. That's what Abdul Muttalib said to him. Because when he said that to him first, he said, look, my camels, give me those back. Abraha was surprised. He said, I'm here telling you I'm going to destroy your Kaaba. You're worried about your camels that I've taken. Abdul Muttalib, that's when he said to him, the Kaaba, Allah will guard over the Kaaba. The camels, they're my responsibility. I need to look after them. So I'm asking you for my camels. the Kaaba, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the Kaaba, will guard the Kaaba. So in any case, Abraha then after that came, وانتهت المفاوضات بأن يرد أبرهة. In fact, with those negotiations, Shaykh bin Baz says, they concluded that Abraha would give his camels back. He would give his camels back. انتهت المفاوضات, the negotiations ended بأن يرد أبرهة إبل عبد المطلب, that he would return the camels of Abdul Muttalib to him. ثم هو وشأنه بالكعبة. Abdul Muttalib said, give me my camels back, after that do what you want. Allah will guard the Kaaba. After that, they were incapable, they couldn't stop them anyway. After that, do as you please, give me my camels back though. So they agreed, and he gave him the camels back. وأمر رجال مكة أن يخلوا البلد ويلتحقوا برؤوس الجبال بنسائهم وأطفالهم خشية المعرة وتلحقهم من الجيش الغازي الظالم. Abdul Muttalib then, when he got his camels back, he said to the inhabitants of Mecca, the people who lived in Mecca, his people, Quraysh, he said to them, flee, get out, go to the mountains, get away from Mecca, because Abraha is coming in now with his army. So flee, get out, go to the areas of the mountains around Mecca, take the children, take the women, get out of this area now, Abraha is coming in with his army. فما هي إلا أن تحرك جيش أبرهة ووصل إلى وادي محصر وإذا بفرق من الطير فرقة بعد أخرى ترسل على ذلك الجيش حجارة الواحدة ما بين الحمص والعدسة في الحجر وما تسقط الحجر على رجل إلا ذاب وتناثر لحمه فهلكوا. So then they all fled, and Abraha was coming in with his army of the elephants. But when they got to that area, that valley coming into Mecca, Hissar, when they got to there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the birds with the pebbles, the size of chickpeas approximately, or lentils, in between that kind of size, pebbles, one in their beaks and one in each claw. So 3 pebbles each bird, and they were throwing those pebbles onto the army. And it mentions the way that it's described, it's like the army melted. Not literally melted, but when those stones came and struck them, then it was going through their bodies and their meat and their flesh, and pebbles everywhere, peppered everywhere with those pebbles, and it was like they became fodder, like they were like grass and hay that the animals eat. They were just strewn all over the place, lying dead all over the place, to the extent when these pebbles went into them, their insides were falling out. Allah destroyed them completely. So they were unable to destroy the Kaaba. And there are of course those details about how when they tried to get the elephants to go near the Kaaba, to tie them up to the chains, the elephants refused. Mahmud refused to walk that way, and when they would turn him around, he would walk the other way. But when they turned him back to the Kaaba, he wouldn't walk towards the Kaaba. So they were destroyed. All of that story happened in the year known as the year of the elephant. That year, just soon after those events happened, the Prophet ﷺ was born. Some of them say it was maybe just a month or 2 after this story happened that the Prophet ﷺ was born. So that's what they mean by the messenger was born in the year of the elephant. It's that story of Abraha al-Ashram, that is the year of the elephant. So that is one opinion, or the year isn't the opinion, the dates we're talking about. The 10th of Rabi' al-Awwal in the year of the elephant, that's okay. But the 10th of Rabi' al-Awwal is an opinion. But a more common and popular opinion is that he was born لكنما المشهور ثاني عشره The more common and popular opinion is that he was born on the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal. And I think that's the date they use when they do their birthday celebrations now. The common opinion of 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal. So this difference of opinion exists. There is even an opinion mentioned by Ibn Kathir that it was the 8th of Rabi' al-Awwal. That it was the 8th of Rabi' al-Awwal. Al-Shaykh al-Albani said in his Sahih al-Seerah from Ibn Kathir, وفي شهره أقوال ذكرها ابن كثير في الأصل يعني البداية والنهاية. He says in terms of the month that the messenger was born in, then there are multiple opinions that Ibn Kathir mentioned in the original book Al-Bidaya wal-Nihaya. وكلها معلقة بدون أسانيد. And all of them do not have full chains of narration. The ends are missing. يمكن النظر فيها ووزنها بميزان علم مصطلح الحديث إلا قول من قال. So all of those opinions, 10th and 12th, etc., Shaykh al-Albani says you could have a look at them and check their chains of narration, and there could be some basis to them. He says, except for the opinion إلا قول من قال إنه في الثامن من ربيع الأول. Except for the statement that it's on the 8th of ربيع الأول. فإنه رواه مالك وغيره بالسند الصحيح عن محمد بن جبير بن مطعم وهو تابعي جليل ولعله لذلك صحح هذا القول أصحاب التاريخ واعتمدوه. ثم قال والجمهور على أنه في الثاني عشر منه والله أعلم. الشيخ الألباني says the 8th of Rabi' al-Awwal, that particular opinion, he says there is a narration reported by or narrated by Imam Malik with an authentic chain that goes up to Muhammad ibn Jubair ibn Mut'im, the Tabi'i. And that's maybe why some of the scholars took that opinion of the 8th. It's an opinion that can exist, a chain of narration that goes up to the Tabi'i. He says then though, the popular opinion though among the majority of the scholars is that it was on the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal. So there are these different evidences that exist, different narrations that exist. There is even an opinion, some of them mention, that the messenger was born in Ramadan. There's an opinion that exists. Not a strong opinion, but there's an opinion. There are altogether, the scholars say, from the opinions that have some basis or weight to them, 6. There are 6 opinions. We mentioned 3 there. 10, 8, 10 and 12 of Rabi' al-Awwal. That's 3 opinions. There is one opinion that it was Ramadan. And there are 2 others, I forget the dates now. But 6 opinions of when that date could have been when the messenger was born. This highlights something to us. It highlights that there is no religious ruling connected to the birth of the messenger. If there was a religious ruling connected to the birth of the messenger, there would be so many hadith companions narrating to us, this was the exact date he was born on, and this is the worship we used to do on that exact date. But there aren't, which indicates there was no worship they used to do on that exact date. And that's why there are no hadith telling us exactly, definitely this was the date. It indicates that there is no worship attached or connected to the specific date of when the messenger was born. So there are these different opinions, but it is accepted that it was in the year of the elephant. There is even a narration where it is mentioned that the messenger said, وَلِدْتُ أَنَا or not the messenger, Qais ibn Makhrama, the companion. That Qais ibn Makhrama radiyallahu anhu, one of the companions, said, "Wulidtu ana wa Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam 'am al-fil, fanahnu lidatan." That he said, this companion Qais ibn Makhrama, that I and the messenger were both born in the year of the elephant. So this companion knew what year he was born in, and he was affirming or confirming that the messenger was born in the same year as him. And he was born in the year of the elephant. He says, I was born in the year of the elephant, and so was the messenger. So based upon narrations like this, it is understood that the messenger was born in the year of the elephant. We know it was on one thing we do know, that it was on a Monday. It was a Monday. Even if we don't know the exact date, and there are differences about that, we know that it was a Monday. في يوم الاثنين طلوع فجره, in the morning after the Fajr. So he was born in that day, and that is established in an authentic narration, Sahih Muslim, that he was born on a Monday. The hadith of Abu Qatada al-Ansari, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was asked, سئل عن صوم يوم الاثنين, he was asked about fasting on Mondays, and he said, ذاك يوم ولدت فيه ويوم بعثت أو أنزل علي فيه. He said, Monday, that is the day that I was born in, and the day that the revelation began upon me, or I was made a prophet. So we know that he was born on a Monday in Mecca, but we do not know the exact date. In the poem, Ibn Abil Izz al-Hanafi also says, وَوَافَقَ الْعِشْرِينَ مِن نَيْسَانَ. Naysan يُقَالُ لَهُ إِبْرِيل, April. They say in some of the books of history that it was April on the calendar that is used here, the Gregorian, that it was in the month of April. وأهل الحساب يقولون وافق مولده من الشهور الشمسية نيسان فكانت العشرين مضت منه. They say, the historians, that the Gregorian calendar at the time of his birth was approximately 20th of April. The year of the elephant, 20th of April, thereabouts. They say that this is what they noted in the books of history. It was around about there in the month of April on this calendar when he was born. That is where we're going to have to stop today. We'll carry on from the next section, which is going to talk about his parents. So now we know about the birth of the messenger. Next, it's going to be about his parents, his father in particular, and the death of his father. And then about him growing up in those first years when he was 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old. The messenger in those first few years, what happened in his life in those first few years. That's what we're going to discuss and move on from next time, insha'Allah ta'ala. We'll have to stop on there for today then. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.
إنما الخلف الطيب منهم من اقتفى أثر السلف، هذا هو الطيب منهم.